they walked away and never looked back. Maybe they moved on quickly, or maybe it only looks that way. You scroll through their profile and there they are smiling, having fun. Perhaps they've started a new relationship before the dust has even settled, or maybe they blocked you everywhere, cut you off completely, and it just feels like dead, cold silence. Now you can feel that in your body. It's like a punch in the gut, because in this moment, all you can think is, did I ever matter to them? Will they ever look back and regret losing me? Or is it really finally over for good? But here's the truth. Avoidants don't regret leaving you in the beginning, but eventually that regret does show up. And when it does, it hits them hard. That's why today I'm walking you through the avoidant regret timeline, the real stages they go through. Now, picture this for a second. You've done no contact. You've endured those nights where sleep doesn't come and the thoughts just won't stop. You've checked their profile, trying to piece together clues. You've hoped for that sign that they miss you, a post, a comment, a phone call, a message, and yet nothing. They seem fine. They may even seem happier. And that's the trap that pulls so many people in. You think, I don't see any signs, and that means regret will never come. You think the silence is proof they never loved you, but attachment research shows something different. It shows that avoidants pull away because getting too close triggers their subconscious fears. And that's why regret comes on its own strange, delayed timeline. So when does it hit and what happens next? That's what we're going to break down step by step. Here's what we'll cover. First, why avoidants feel relief right away after leaving. Second, when the cracks start to show and loneliness starts creeping in. And third, when and how they start looking back at your time together. And finally, what makes them actually regret losing you. And in the end, I'll share the one mistake that ruins everything if you're hoping their regret will mean they're coming back to you. Now, stage 1 in the timeline, the first 1 to 4 weeks, is what we'll call relief and emotional numbing. When an avoidant ex leaves right away, they feel relieved. After weeks or months of being weighed down by the expectations and the demands of a relationship, the moment they cut things off, they feel that pressure lift. Now, studies on attachment styles explain why this is happening. Avoidants regulate stress by deactivating their attachment system. That's a technical way of saying they shut down their feelings so they don't have to deal with them. And when that system is shut down, what they feel most is a sense of relief. Now, before we go on, it's worth noting that there is no universal countdown clock where on exactly day 45 of no contact, your ex is going to feel regret and come back to you. But it's critical to understand that most avoidants follow a very clear pattern. And this pattern, this timeline, is based on real data. A quick example is a 2003 study of 5,000 people who had recently gone through breakups. Here, researchers found that in the first several weeks after a breakup, people with an avoidant attachment style reported less anxiety, less sorrow, and less pain than people with other attachment styles. And the research shows that avoidants rely more on distracting themselves after a breakup by focusing on work, hobbies, or quickly dating someone new. So what that really means to you is this. If your ex is an avoidant, then they are essentially ignoring and distracting themselves from their emotions. From a high-level view, This is why you can be heartbroken, barely able to eat, and losing sleep while they look like they're living their best life ever. Now, you see them posting selfies, going out, even dating someone new. And I know that cuts deep, but I want you to hear this. It isn't because you didn't matter. It's because their defense system has kicked in. And this is exactly why chasing them at this stage always backfires. When you lean in while they're pulling away, it only reinforces their feeling that leaving was the right choice. Now, I understand how challenging this can be for you, but the key thing to understand here is that when you chase them, it confirms the story they're telling themselves, the story that they need to distance themselves from you. And it's why you hear things like, "I still care about you, but I just can't do this," "You're too much for me," or "I just need time to figure myself out." But the underlying truth in stage 1 is this: avoidants seem to look happy after a breakup, but it's all surface level happiness. They're suppressing emotions and distracting themselves from what's happened. So if you're wondering how can they move on so quickly, the answer is this: they're not processing the breakup or their emotions. They're avoiding them. But they can't do that forever. And that's what we're going to talk about in stage 2. Stage 2 is when the quiet cracks start to form. This is typically between 1 and 3 months, but once the dust settles and the excitement of freedom fades, they notice something is starting to change. This might take weeks, it might take months depending on the person, but eventually that sense of "I'm free" turns into quiet emptiness. Now, when researchers studied avoidance, they discovered something interesting. They found that avoidants are highly successful when it comes to suppressing any thoughts about a breakup until they get stressed or life gets difficult. Then those feelings start rising up to the surface. Now, this is what researchers call a rebound effect. Not a rebound like a relationship rebound, but a rebound of emotions. It's like overstuffing a suitcase. They keep cramming emotions inside, forcing it shut, dragging that baggage around until one day it pops open, and little by little, things start spilling out. And if you're an avoidant, you might suddenly feel a quiet loneliness settling in as you begin to notice that hollow, empty feeling growing inside of you. Now, you don't quite know what that is you're feeling, but it's as if something has been missing in your life. And what that means to you, if you've been in no contact, then stage 2 is often when your avoidant ex will resurface in small ways, checking your profile, sending a casual text, asking a friend about you, not because they've fully processed what's happened and feel that regret, but because the cracks in their defense system are starting to show. Now, for many avoidants, this can take even longer, but for most in stage 2, during the first 1 to 3 months, it becomes harder to suppress their emotions. Which means you'll see them check your profile, watch your stories, or even send a casual text. It might just be, "Hey," or it might be a meme, it might be something light, almost meaningless and easy to miss. But for you, this can feel huge. This can feel like proof they regret it and are ready to come back to you. Now, here's the painful truth. Most avoidants at this stage, they are not reaching out because they've processed regret and miss you. They're reaching out to see if the door is still open. And what that really means to you is this. At this point, it's more about them soothing their own low-level discomfort than it is about rebuilding a relationship with you. And what that ultimately means to you is this. Stage 2 can be one of the most difficult stages because with every little breadcrumb that they drop, you notice that flood of emotions washing over you as hope pulls you right back in, even when you swore you were moving on. Now, there's a part of you that wants to believe that maybe they still care, maybe they miss me, and just maybe things will be different this time. But the truth is, they're just checking to see if you're still there. So in the end, stage 2 circles back to this. When life gets a little difficult and time passes, it becomes harder to suppress their emotions. The distractions don't work like they used to. Even other relationships don't distract them as much. And so the feeling of being on their own, not having this deeper connection with someone, starts creeping in. They're not really regretting anything or wanting to get back together at this stage. It's more like you feel a dull emptiness growing inside of you, as if something is missing in your life. And that's why you'll see them pop back up with small, casual check-ins. Not because they've reached real regret yet, but because they're trying to ease that growing void that comes when they can't completely suppress their emotions anymore. So stage 1 is all about relief. In stage 2, it gets harder for them to keep those emotions suppressed. Then research shows that around 3 to 6 months after the breakup, most avoidants will reach stage 3. Here in stage 3, they're going to start reflecting on your past together, but in a protective way. We could call this a sort of distorted nostalgia, but what it really means is this. Avoidantly attached people tend to tell their stories in a less resolved, less processed way that minimizes their emotional pain. They're basically riding the line between suppressing their emotions and starting to remember your past together. This is the part that really counts, because this is where regret actually begins to take shape. They'll minimize how much the breakup hurt them. They'll tell themselves it was the right choice. But as time passes and those quiet cracks start to spread, memories start to resurface. And what that really means to you is this. They might compare you to someone new and realize it's not the same. They might tell themselves it wasn't that bad when we were together, or maybe even start to think that they overreacted. But it's never a straightforward, I miss you. This is where the truth starts to show itself. So let's go a little deeper. At this point, their defenses are starting to crack. And because of that, they begin reflecting on your past together. But since they're still subconsciously suppressing their emotions, it doesn't register as I miss you and regret breaking up. It shows up as I just wonder how you're doing. This is why you'll see your ex pop up with that vague check-in. They'll send some random remember when text out of nowhere. They'll bring up old jokes or memories, but completely avoid talking about why it ended. They might act friendly, almost flirty, but then they disappear again. It's like they suddenly remembered the good times, but but forgot all the bad. And it's crucial to see this stage for what it is. It's not proof they're coming back. It's not proof of deep regret yet. It's regret beginning to surface, but still held down by their subconscious, so it only shows up in small, indirect ways. Here's how it all comes together in stage 3. Around this stage, avoidants do start looking back, but not in a direct way. Instead of fully feeling they miss you, their mind softens the story to protect them. They become curious about you and your life. They might reach out, but it's a softened kind of remembering that shows regret is starting to surface while their subconscious continues to push the more painful feelings out of their awareness. Now, here's the turning point. Stage 4, roughly 6 to 12 months later, is when regret finally hits them. This is the stage most people are waiting for, and it often comes much later than you think. Now, what cracks avoidance open isn't your messages. It isn't proving your worth or telling them how much you'll be there for them. What makes real regret is the absence of what they once took for granted. And what that means to you is this: you have to give them time and distance in no contact to get to this point. This is because research shows that regret usually appears when two things line up. First, the novelty fades. The excitement of freedom wears thin. The new relationship, if they jumped into one, doesn't feel as thrilling anymore. And then second, comparison creeps in. They start realizing that the emotional safety, the stability, the comfort you gave them is not easy to replace. And that realization can shock them. This is the point where they might start checking their old messages, reaching out more directly, even genuinely wondering if they made a mistake. But here's what you have to remember. Regret does not equal change. What no one really talks about is this. Just because they feel regret, it doesn't mean they know what to do with it. And this brings us to the single biggest mistake that can ruin a person's life. That mistake is waiting around, holding your life hostage until regret finally shows up. If you've been stuck, this might be why. So many people think that once regret appears, you're going to get back together and everything will be fine. But the research is clear. Regret does not erase avoidant patterns. If the underlying fears and defenses haven't changed, the cycle will repeat. Now, it's okay to want them to regret it. It's natural to hope for that validation, but let's be honest about why we want them to feel regret. It's because people don't regret losing things that never mattered. And if they don't regret losing you, then naturally it feels like you never mattered to them. It feels like you're not good enough for them, and it feels like you're not lovable. But that is a lie. And if you remember one thing from any of my videos, let it be this. Their ability to regret you has nothing to do with how lovable you are. It has everything to do with how intimacy feels unsafe to them, and pulling away is how they protect themselves. Let's stay grounded in what's real here. If regret arrives, it's usually after a long time, and when the excitement of freedom or a new relationship has worn thin. At this point, avoidants may realize that the stability or comfort they once had with you is harder to replace than they thought. But what really matters here is that even when regret shows up, it doesn't mean they've changed. Without real growth, the same avoidant patterns usually return. Now, what you choose to do with this next part will change everything. Instead of asking, when will they regret me? Ask, do I even want them back if they do? Because that's a far more powerful place to stand. So let's bring this all home. Avoidant regret comes late. It comes in phases and it does not guarantee change. But knowing the timeline helps you stop taking their silence as proof that you didn't matter. It helps you see their behavior for what it is, a pattern rooted in fear, not a judgment on your worth. So if you're still stuck in the pain of no contact, if you feel like the anxiety and the emptiness are too heavy to carry on your own, I made something for you. It's called the No Contact Survival Kit. It's a 7-day emotional reset that walks you through the hardest part of staying strong when all you want to do is reach out. You can get it from the link in the description. Now, if this helped you make sense of things, then the next step is simple. Watch this video, the 3 stages of an avoidant coming back and what makes them stay. This is where I go even deeper into the emotional shift that happen right before they come back.